Hello there, and welcome to Talking Nerdy, the show where we take various story arcs and events from current comics and we cover them. I'm your host, Obi-Wan Jabroni. Now, our story today is Savage Avengers number 20 through 23, which primarily follows a reality-displaced Conan the Barbarian as he teams up with other darker Marvel characters to try to hunt down the evil wizard Kulan Gath. Now, this story is written by Jerry Dugan, with art by Patch Zerker, and colors by Java Tartaglia. With that, let's start talking nerdy. First up, we have Savage Avengers number 20. The clothes do not maketh the Spider-Man. After teaming up with Deadpool and the mutant marauders to battle Null's symbiote forces, Conan took up residence at the New York City mansion that formerly housed the Hellfire Club. Conan also bonded with an alien symbiote that shared his desire for revenge against the evil sorcerer Kulan Gath. The wizard remains an active threat as Conan continues to seek new riches and adventures. Now, we open up on the bar with no name. And Conan's at the bar and he's drinking when Rhino walks in, and we learn that the barkeep has a job that will keep the bar open at least a little bit longer at this location. Now, she tells Rhino that he will need 4 guys, and before she can continue on, Conan interrupts and says that he fights like 10 men and will do it for only a quarter of the take. They agree to a 3-way split, and we switch to the Bank of Manhattan. Now, Conan enters in a black suit and he goes to the corner and starts to wait and scope out the place. Moments later, Rhino bursts through the wall yelling, "I'm here for the cash." And while the cops are distracted with Rhino, Conan slips into the bank vault. Now, outside, Rhino is destroying cop cars left and right when Spider-Man shows up and starts to wrap Rhino up in webs. And he gets him wrapped up, and his spider sense starts to go off, and he sees Conan walking away from the bank with a suitcase in hand. And he swings over, landing in front of Conan, and tells him to stop and now. And Conan sets the bag down carefully and looks up and tells him that he's leaving and you ain't gonna stop me. He quickly grabs Spidey by the leg and throws him to the side. Conan tells him to take off the climbing suit and he will buy it off of him. Seconds later, Rhino bursts out of the webs and charges at Spider-Man. Spidey jumps out of the way and hits Rhino on each ear, stunning him for a while. While he's doing that, Conan comes in and blindsides him and says, "You should have took the coin. Now I'm gonna rip the thieves' garment off of you." They trade blows back and forth until Conan finally gets pissed and summons his symbiote arm and sword and starts swinging at Spidey. At that point, Rhino slams into Spidey's back and jumps on him, punching him into the road and down into the subway below. Conan tells Rhino to take the score and leave. He will cover the exit for Spider-Man. And a cop pulls up and tells Conan to freeze, pulling his gun on him. And he quickly grabs the cop with the symbiote and throws him into the hole, saying that you'll get saved, don't worry. And Spidey sees him falling and swings over and saves the cop right before a train comes through to squish them both. And he returns up to the surface to find that Conan and Rhino are already both gone. Now, at this point, we switch to Veracruz, Mexico, and we see Kulan Gath walk up to the ashen remains. And he says, "Who gave you permission to die? Arise, my priest of sickles." And he uses his magic to reanimate and rebuild the remains that are on the ground. And Gath tells him that he failed, but the siege of this reality begins now. And that ends our first issue. Taking us to Savage Avengers number 21, Dream Warriors. Conan recently took up residence at the New York mansion that formerly housed the Hellfire Club. He also bonded with an alien symbiote that shares his desire for revenge against the sorcerer Kulan Gath. Despite the efforts of Conan and his allies, Kulan Gath has continued to spread his evil influence by using the power of the ancient entity shuma-gorath. Now, we open at Hellfire Mansion, and Conan awakens from a nightmare about Kulan Gath, and he's laying next to two naked women. Very Conan. And from behind, someone says, "I would have words with you." And he turns to see Emma Frost walking down from the upstairs. And she tells him that she did Logan a favor by letting Conan stay here, and that he can do so until Kulan Gath is killed, and then he can leave. And she leaves the building. And later, Conan leaves as well and goes on a walk through the city at night. And he's walking down an alleyway when he hears glass shatter above him, and he looks up to see someone fall out to their death out the window and onto the pavement in front of him. He looks up and sees more people starting to kill themselves. They all are possessed and have blacked out eyes. Conan rushes into the apartment building and pulls the fire alarm, telling everyone to wake up and get out of there, that they're not safe in their own sleep. And as he's running down, waking people up, a chain bursts through a nearby window and pulls Conan back outside. And he is met by Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider, saying he smells Kulan Gath on him, and he asks him to take him to him now, or feel the pain of the penance stare. And Conan yanks the chain, pulling Ryder off of his bike, saying, "I don't consort with wizards, and I hate the undead." And he slams the bike down on top of Ghost Rider. And Conan tells him that he's no friend of Gath or any sorcerer, and but he remembers the Ghost Rider. And we get a monologue flashback I'm going to read for you here. Years from my wander from Chimera, I witnessed our ancestors stride into battle atop a great beast. A mad king was pillaging the land. No one was spared the cruelty and barbarism of his forces, until the undead warrior with a flaming skull and sorcerous eyes laid waste to it all that stood before it. Some scholars pulled their coin and hired me to assassinate the mad king. Your predecessor saved me the trouble, but I kept the coin. Now, Ghost Rider tells him that he's living a waking nightmare, and he sees Conan serving Kulan Gath, and he charges at Conan, yelling, "Where is your master?" And Conan drives his symbiote sword into Ghost Rider's chest, and Rider grabs his head and uses his penance stare on him. But it has no effect, and Rider stumbles back, saying, "Something's wrong. Something is making me see nightmares that aren't there." Conan rushes him and drives his fingers into the rider's eye sockets, causing a blinding explosion. And as the light fades away, Conan sees that he has been teleported back to his home reality in the town of Aquilia. And that ends our issue. Leading us into Savage Avengers number 22, A Waking Nightmare. New Yorkers recently fell prey to an evil presence in their dreams that caused them to inflict violence on themselves and others. While attempting to aid them, Conan was attacked by Ghost Rider, who sensed Conan's past connection to Kulan Gath. The two battled, and when Conan shattered Ghost Rider's skull, he found himself suddenly transported back to Aquilionia during the Hyborian Age. Now, we open on the city of Aquilia, and Conan is wandering the streets confused, when out of nowhere a new Ghost Rider on a giant spider appears, attacking Conan and yelling to tell him where Kulan Gath is. Conan lunges, knocking the rider off his mount, and starts pounding on him. The rider's spider comes behind him and bites his shoulder, causing him to faint. And he awakens in a cave wrapped in webs and hanging from the ceiling. And he struggles to free himself and goes over to another person he sees hanging, and he frees them as well. And the man's revealed to be Johnny Blaze. Blaze tells them they are stuck in the same nightmare, and that he is powerless here, when suddenly a pack of werewolves come out of the nearby tunnel and starts attacking them. They try to fight them off, but they are both weak and powerless still, and they are easily overcome, and they both pass out yet again. This time they awaken on horses with nooses around their neck at high noon, it seems. And we see another horse approach them, and riding it is the entity known as Nightmare. And he gives a little bit of a monologue explanation here for us as well that I'm going to read for you. I am Nightmare. I've been looking for you. I spoke to you through the mortals in New York City. I don't usually consort with mortals, but I have a bone to pick with you, Conan, and since you so rarely have nightmares, I needed to enthrall Ghost Rider and send him looking for you. You're both guilty, but please don't interrupt me. I've gone through quite a bit of trouble to find you. Now, what was I saying? Oh yes, every man has fears. And you, and now, as you twist in the wind, I can see yours. Sometimes I write the nightmares, other times I just nourish what I find in mortal heads. And your nightmares are rather droll, dying an old man with your boots off. 'Tis the dream of many men. Fear not, your nightmare will not come to pass, I think. You see, Kulan Gath found me and had a taste of my power. Now the realm of nightmares is his to lose. However, I spoke the truth before. Every man has a nightmare. And do you know what Kulan Gath is afraid of? He's afraid of you. He dreams of conquest and fantasizes about slow deaths for the ones who crossed him. In his dreams, even I beg for death that he will not grant. But his dreams go to a dark place, in which you are missing and beyond his sight. You killed Kulan Gath once. You can kill him again. All our fates may rest upon that question. I had to meet you. Now give our old friend Stephen Strange my regards, and I suggest you get on with it. Goth is on the move. His attack is already underway. Perhaps you should save some of the wine in the Hellfire Club's cellars for you when you are victorious. Let's hope you are. Soon it'll be too late to stop him. Now find Strange. Gath doesn't know where to find you. But the Sorcerer Supreme is another matter. And Nightmare rides off, and they are blinded by a bright light yet again. And Blaze and Conan wake up back in an alley in New York City. And Conan tells Blaze that he will go and find Strange. And Blaze gets on his bike and tells him to find him when they find Kulan Gath or Nightmare. He owes them payback. And then he rides off as well. Later on, we see Conan arrive at Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum, and he enters to find Strange standing with the supernatural entity Shuma-gorath. And that ends our issue. Taking us to our final issue, Savage Avengers number 23, House Call. Now, we open in Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum, and he is levitating in his library, and he sends out a protection spell to all the Savage Avengers, Conan, Elektra, Dr. Voodoo, Venom, Wolverine, and Blade, to try to help rid them of Kulan Gath's internal rot. And he returns to the ground after this, and he asks the Eye of Agamotto to show him Kulan Gath. But it shows him nothing, and he gets pissed and throws a book across the room and leaves. And he goes down to his kitchen and grabs a bag, saying it's time to talk to shuma-gorath. And he teleports out to the swamps of Florida to meet with the Man-Thing. And he offers Man-Thing the bag in exchange for him opening a portal to the nexus of all realities. Man-Thing accepts, and he opens the portal, and Doctor Strange enters. And Strange flies through the void for a while until he finds Shuma-Gorath strung up and bleeding. And we learn that Kulan Gath has trapped Shuma here and has been consuming parts of him, stealing his power over time. Strange says that Gath has already killed one sorcerer supreme and asks Shuma how to stop him. And Shuma tells him that he can't stop it. Gath has already gathered everything he needs. And they hear a knocking nearby, and a door appears behind Strange, and it opens to show Conan enter from the front door of the sanctum that we seen last issue. And Strange tells him that he had much to learn from Shuma-Gorath, and Conan pulls out his dagger and tells Strange to finish it now. Shuma screams, "Do it! I can stand it no longer!" And Strange says, "Very well," and lunges at Shuma with the dagger, killing him. And when he pulls back, he calls the crimson bands to wrap around the bloody blade, and he puts it into his belt. And he looks back over to the remains of Shuma and calls the flames of the Valentine down to burn the remains. And then he teleports him and Conan back to his loft at the Sanctum Sanctorum. Strange says something's wrong and quickly puts up a shield as a green blast shoots at them both. And we turn to see Gath's Priest of Sickles from issue 21 enter the room, saying that the world has changed while you were in the Nightmare Realm, Conan. And he gestures outside, and we see all the citizens on the streets' eyes start to glow green. And in unison, they tell them to kneel or watch the people suffer. And they look up into the sky and see the entire city of Sickles floating on a chunk of rock above New York City. And that ends this story arc. I hope you all enjoyed this week's video. Be sure to join us next week, where we continue to cover Star Wars War of the Bounty Hunters with Chapter 2. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Feedback is always welcome. You can also find us on the Jabroni Nerd Network Facebook page and on Twitter at Jabroni Network. So until next week, guys, stay sweaty and keep talking nerdy. Thank you.